And if you don't, okay, it is March 19th, 2024. Time, such as it is, inexorably moving forward, although we know that time is just a construct. And we are going to meditate for 20 minutes, and then I will talk for a while, and we'll see then where that leads us. My table is a little out of, turning my table. I have my mind training sweatshirt on, which invariably gets a joke from the roommate, aka my wife. Yeah. So yeah, let's sit. Oh, you didn't get the recording announcement? Well,
Is she actually recording?
that's a good question. We thought she was. Yeah, it says it's recording. So
Okay.
yeah. Maybe if you come in later or something, it doesn't ask you. Whatever.
Yeah, it might be at the top of your screen. I've noticed this in another meeting. Now they have a new place that they come. Oh, she found it. Yay.
They moved it.
Okay then.
Those people, I hate change.
You know, Zoom 12.0. All right. So we'll sit. So just settling into your seating posture, whatever is supportive of your practice. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, taking the attention away from the visual world, from the external world, turning the attention inward. And just feeling how you're holding your body. Feeling the breath moving in the body. Well, Ajahn Buddhadasa tells us that the breath is the body conditioner, meaning that we can use the breath to help to calm the body. And the way I like to do this is by paying attention to my exhalations and stretching them out a little bit more at the beginning of a sit, and letting each exhalation have a sense of releasing through the body. You let the shoulders let go, the belly is softened. It's almost a sense of being drawn to the earth, letting gravity pull you towards the earth, and yet you're not allowing your posture to change. Nothing is really changing externally. It's more just the subtle forms of tension in the body that we relax. Just work with that for a few moments. This releasing is a form of letting go, and there can be a little resistance, or we might notice just the mild anxiety about letting go. It feels like we're making ourselves vulnerable in some way. We're not sort of bracing ourselves or having that, letting go of that armoring that can be kind of an undercurrent in the way we hold our bodies. And even as the body softens, we may find thoughts coming through, capturing our attention. So we let go of them when we notice thinking happening. Come back to the breath, to the body. We can say that mindfulness is a kind of attunement. Tuning to the body, to the mind, to feelings. Each of these can affect the others. Start to see this as and as we meditate, one of these aspects of experience, body, feelings, mind, may come to dominate for a moment or for a period of time. And so we give particular attention to that aspect of experience. So if there's a strong, pay attention to that. If there's an intense emotion, we try to be present with that. If thoughts or mental states become very strong, then we pay attention to that. And we'll quickly see how each of these is affecting the others as well. And they're not unrelated. They are connected and merge into each other. Body, feelings, mind. Generally, the easiest one of these to apply mindfulness to is body. So this is why we return to the breath. It also doesn't have any content, and experience of breath doesn't suggest any meaning. So it allows us to just settle, be with it. Breathing in, breathing out. Hey. Um, so a couple things before I launch into topic for today. Just a reminder that I do have several retreats coming up this year. The first one will be, well, several more because we just had one in May with Vimalasara. I will be at Big Bear Retreat Center. Trying to see if I have the link anywhere. I don't see it offhand, but we can pull it up. And so that's just a Thursday to a Sunday. So if you're looking for a shorter retreat, and it's in Southern California, in the mountains outside of Los Angeles, um, that should be fun. If you don't know Vimalasar, she's a very powerful, really wonderful Buddhist recovery teacher. And then after that, in June, I'm going to be doing something for Flowering Lotus which is in the South, and they're based in Mississippi. I think the retreat's going to be in Alabama, and then in around 4th of July weekend, Tri-State Dharma in Cincinnati is putting a retreat on for me in Southeast Indiana. So hope to see people live. Always nice. If you can get to one of those retreats, I think you'll find it worthwhile. In case you're interested, I am working on some books. Shambhala has the editor at Shambhala is looking at my book on the Anapanasati Sutta, and I'm also putting together a book just for people in recovery, just about the 11th step and just basically how to meditate in the most direct terms. So that I might put that out this year. I'm gonna probably self-publish that. And last week I started going through the book More Than Mindfulness from the Abhayagiri and Thai forest monks, and a new publication which is free for download. So you can get that. We also can get a link to that, I think, up on the Abhayagiri website. And so I'm going to, over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to go through that book. But I got on another track this week, so I actually have the material from chapter 2 prepared. But the guided meditation will give you a hint as to what I've been kind of thinking about, and it is this idea of starts with this idea that comes from Buddhadasa, as I mentioned, that the breath conditions the body, and he uses this word sankara, which is a very interesting Pali term, has many sort of a variety of meanings, shows up in different places. It's actually used to characterize the volitional formations or sankara, and then conditioned things are sankara, but sankara is also like a verb, conditioner. So this is something that came up as I was working on the Anapanasati book, because it comes out of Buddhadasa's own writing or teaching about mindfulness of breathing, where he says that in that sutta, the beginning of the practice that is taught in that sutta is be aware of the breath and be aware of the whole body, and then calm the body. And he says that the breath has this calming effect on the body. And then the second section of the sutta is on feeling, in which he says, well, feeling conditions the mind. So this is another fairly clear and simple idea that how we're feeling affects the kind of thoughts that show up in our mind. That's the most obvious way of characterizing that. Or we could say it more generically or differently, that our mind state, like whether our mind is, bright or dark or concentrated or unconcentrated, uh, um, kind of like tight or loose, whatever, however you characterize mind states, that's conditioned by the underlying feelings. So as I was reflecting on these two statements he makes, I thought, well, shouldn't he also say that the body conditions the breath, and that the mind conditions feelings, and then that feelings condition the breath, and the mind conditions the breath? So, in other words, what you're feel when you're anxious, your breath changes, right? And the way your body feels changes. If you have a thought of anger, the body gets hot. If you have a feeling of anger, the breath starts getting faster or something. We can see that. And then, so it's really, the point is that this is a system we're working with: body, feelings, and mind. They're all interconnected. And in the Anapanasati Sutta, we're being given sort of a way or a technique for managing this system, so that we're going to work with mindfulness of the breath. And when we work with that and stay very present with the breath, that the breath will start to quiet, but then more importantly, the body will start to become calm. And people who have done any significant amount of meditation have experienced things like this, that you're just paying attention to the breath, and then you notice, oh, I'm getting really relaxed, right? Oh, great. And then paying attention to feeling, that if we just breathe with our feelings, that then if we don't get caught up in them, that then those feelings will settle and the mind will become more calm. And we start to see, okay, that's great. This is good. This is how I want to meditate. But it doesn't really answer the further challenges of meditation, which is that sometimes there's stuff going on, that doesn't necessarily respond to just breathing. It's like, I need something more than that. You're really angry. It's like, okay, I'm taking some breaths, but I'm really still pissed off at this person, Or there's this anxiety, and I'm breathing with it, but it's kind of not necessarily responding to that. So I thought, well, what do we do with that? What do we do with the things that aren't just gonna automatically respond to mindfulness of breathing or mindfulness of feelings or mindfulness of the mind? And so I immediately thought of the really important and sutta that's often talked about, which is especially in this regard, in regard to working with what shows up in the mind. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 20, that's translated as the removal of distracting thoughts, Vitakka Santana. Vitakka Santana. I'm looking at it. Sometimes these Pali words are very long, and you have to break them down into pieces so that you can sort of Vitakka Santana. Vitakka actually means thoughts or thinking, so that's why it's so. I'm going to guess that Santana means removing thoughts. Vitakka. So the removal of distracting thoughts. Anybody who's studied the suttas very much has run into this one, and you may have heard Dharma teachers give talks about it. And so in this, the Buddha gives 5 strategies for working with really like disruptive mind states. The first one of the most famous ones, we call it nowadays the replacing practice. So that when you realize you have a certain mind state, you try to, that's unhelpful, unwholesome, you try to replace it with something that's helpful and wholesome. So this is very intentional, and the most common way that we do this is using loving kindness when there's either, anger or really anything, because loving kindness has the soothing quality to it and a calming quality to it. There are similes that go with each of these 5 strategies, and this is the one where the Buddha describes let's see, where is he? A carpenter who is, it'd be someone who is like putting together the joints in a chair or a table, and and instead of having nails or something, he has pegs. I'm saying he, but could be a she, obviously. So the carpenter sees that the peg that's holding the joints together is coarse. It isn't fitting very well in there. So the carpenter then knocks that out, removes it, and replaces it with a peg that fits better into that joint. And so this is the replacing. So I'll read you just the paragraph. When a bhikkhu, when a practitioner is giving attention to some sign, so something you're aware of, and there arise in them evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hate, and with delusion, so greed, hatred, and delusion, then they should give attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome. So this is the very specific way of doing it. You're trying to meditate and you realize you're just thinking about this person that you're really annoyed with. And so you realize that's happening. You go, oh, let me pay attention to something else. Let me see if I can cultivate a quality of loving kindness, maybe toward them, or maybe feeling of compassion toward them, or maybe toward someone else, right? Maybe think of someone else. In other words, what I'm trying to replace isn't so much the thought of the person, but the hatred that I'm having for them, right? That's what I'm trying to get rid of. I don't really need to worry about the person themselves, because that's what we're talking about. It's a thought of hatred or, desire, hatred, and delusion. So how can so I'm trying to change my mind state. Right? So that first one is really the most common of these 5 strategies and the clearest one. Some of the others get a little less clear. The second one is, he makes this kind of a progressive thing where he says, well, if while giving attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, there still arise in them evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hatred, and delusion, then one should examine the danger in those thoughts. So, wow, I'm really like, this is really not helpful. And this is this is a very graphic simile. But let me read what he says before the simile. Then one should examine the danger of those thoughts thus. And so this is what you should think. These thoughts are unwholesome. They are reprehensible. They result in suffering. So just realizing, this is a really helpful reflection. Like, it's interesting our relationship to our minds, right? To our thoughts. If we're very identified with our own mind and our own thoughts, then it doesn't occur to us that we can change them. But as meditators, we become aware, like, these just thoughts, they just come, they go, like, here's this nice one, there's that crummy one, like, uh, and so that when you realize, like, I'm really stuck on this very unwholesome, like really kind of, negative thought. It could be like a angry thought or a fearful thought or really like obsessed with desire for something or someone. And you understand because you've studied the Dharma and you've practiced that this is not helpful. And if you're paying attention to how you actually feel as you're having that thought, you realize this is actually painful. Anger is painful. Craving is painful. Obsession is painful, right? So addiction, as addicts, like, why we stopped, because we realized that, the behavior was painful, but also the mental states and the feelings that went with the behavior was painful. So this is just bringing mindfulness. Like, what does this feel like? It's, we're interrupting the flow of our thinking that's like, we're all just in our stuff, right? And we catch ourselves. I know all of you do this at various times. Like, oh, and it's kind of the Buddha saying, like, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking? This isn't helpful. I don't like this. I don't want to think this. This isn't who I want to be. And so then he gives this graphic simile. It says, just as a man or a woman, young, youthful, and fond of ornaments, would be horrified, humiliated, and disgusted if the carcass of a snake or a dog or a human being were hung around their neck. So too, one examines these thoughts and sees that they are unwholesome, reprehensible, they result in suffering. So too, when one examines them, the mind becomes steadied, internally quieted, brought to singleness, concentrated. So you see, like, this is like, I don't want to have this thought. This isn't helpful. And then, if that reflection works, things settle down. You let it go. Right? So we've got this replacing, like, can I just replace this negative thought with something more positive? I don't really like negative and positive as language, but it's hard to find, let's just say, like, can I replace this unwholesome thought with something wholesome? And then I tried, but it's kept coming up. And it's like, then I'm like, this is really unpleasant. I don't want to have this. Okay, does that let it go? Okay, maybe. But if not, while examining the danger in those thoughts, there still arise in them unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hatred, with delusion, then one should try to forget those thoughts and not give attention to them. I think this is an interesting strategy, and we can see now that the Buddha is veering off of the idea of mindfulness of whatever shows up. So this is a helpful reminder, because we can sort of have this idea, like, and I hear people talk about this on their experience on retreat, like, well, this is what's here, so I have to be with it. It's like, well, not if it's not helping you, Well, I'm just thinking about how much I hate this person. I guess I just have to be mindful of hatred. Like, not necessarily. You could try to let it go, and just the idea, like, can you just, like, forget about it? Don't pay attention to it. Don't feed it. So the simile for here, he says, just as a person with good eyes who did not want to see forms that come within their range of sight would either shut their eyes or look away, so too one should try to forget those thoughts and not give attention to them. It's not a terribly graphic simile, but it's pretty simple and easy to understand. Oh, I'm not going to look at that. And we've all had that experience in our lives, right? I'm going to ignore this. I mean, a lot of people tell me that this is what they do with the news. I just don't read the news. Well, that's a good way to avoid, the news. uh, and we probably also all had the experience of, like, walking down the street and see, like, some homeless person who's curled up in a space, and you're like, oh. I mean, part of you is like, oh, that's sad, and you feel compassion, but you're also like, I just don't really want to like look at that. It's painful. And here we are, we have these horrible wars going on, and we're aware of them. It's like it's not that we aren't aware of them, but how much attention are we giving them? And what are we doing with our attention? So, this brings up the question of like being like, the Buddha tells us we should understand suffering. And, Thich Nhat Hanh makes this very strongly the point, don't turn away from suffering, right? Be aware of suffering. But we also have to maintain our inner balance. Because this is, it doesn't help if we get so, and I'm sure we've all fallen into this at times where it's like you just get so caught up in the dukkha of the world, that you just get despairing. And it's like, okay, that's not a helpful mind state, right? So balance, right? Like I need to give attention to the suffering of the world, and I want to be informed about the world, but I don't have to be just sitting on Twitter 24/7, and like reading every horrible thing that's going, uh, and, and this is something, I talk about in Living Kindness, my book about working with the Brahmaviharas, and that, one perspective, and this is I'm stepping into a little sidebar here, the perspective that I try to take when it starts to feel overwhelming is the idea of, first of all, taking refuge in the Dharma and realizing that, well, greed, hatred, and delusion is the story of human history. This isn't new. The fact that there's horrible things going on is not news. It's olds. It's just what has always been happening. That doesn't mean I want to ignore it or not be engaged in wholesome and productive ways, but it also means that being overwhelmed by it as if, oh my God, like the world is going to hell in a handbasket. It's like, no, the world has been like this forever. That's why in the suttas, the Buddha talks about greed, hatred, and delusion. And he even like meets up with kings who are deciding whether they should invade their neighboring countries. It's like, okay, this, and you have the stories of the King Bimbisara, who was murdered by his own son so that his son could become king, regicide, patricide, all wrapped up in one. And that's 2,500 years ago, so the horrors of the world come out of the horrors of the human heart, and the human heart has been the same as long as we've been able to track it. And nonetheless, so coming back to this teaching, at times it's wise to just look away and just to just, okay, I don't need to let this capture me. However, if while trying to forget those thoughts and not give attention to them, as well as replace them and look into their unwholesome qualities, there still arise in them evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hatred, with delusion, then one should give attention to stilling the thought formation of those thoughts. Now, the thought formation, there is a note, and I think we should look at this note. I'm hoping it's a good one. Note number 242, for those of you who are reading along. So, okay, yes, and guess what? What's the word that shows up? This is the way I want to look at the note. The thought formation, Vitakka Sankhara Santanam. The commentary on the Majjhima Nikaya understands Sankhara here as condition, cause, or root, and takes the compound to mean stopping the cause of the thought. So this is accomplished by inquiring when an unwholesome thought has arisen, what is the cause, what is the cause of its cause, etc. Such an inquiry, according to the commentary, brings about a slackening and eventually the cessation of the flow of unwholesome thought. So it's a really interesting note. Now I can make a separate Dharma talk now. Because as I said, it started out like this word Sankara shows up, and it's a really important, it's like it's wrapped up with causality. Things are conditioned, right? And like how to, and about how things intertwine and work together to create things. And so, well, I'll give you the metaphor, but I'm going to tell you why I'm not sure the metaphor actually works here for considering that note. So just as a person while walking fast might consider, why am I walking fast? What if I walk slowly? And then they would walk slowly. Then they might consider, why am I walking slowly? What if I stand? They stand. Then they might consider, why am I standing? What if I sit? When they sit, what they might consider, why am I sitting? Why not? What if I lie down? By doing so, they would substitute for each grosser posture one that was subtler. So too, when one is giving attention to the stilling of the thought formation, one could give attention to stilling the thought formation of those thoughts. So I've always thought of this simile as being actually similar to what I was saying in the guided meditation this morning, which is like breathing and calming the body and having a sense of everything settling and settling and settling in something that you kind of can do in meditation as you develop some skills around just calming, calming, calming. You know, like you feel all the energy in your body, like you're running. It's like, oh, let me calm that down. Okay, now it's like I'm walking. Let me calm that down some more, like some standing. Let me calm that down some more. Oh, now it's like I'm sitting. Now it's like I'm lying. But what this note implies that we're actually inquiring into causality. And we're asking ourselves, where is this energy coming from? Oh, I see there's a thought. What's the feeling connected to that thought? Oh, I can see there's a feeling there. Oh, but what's underneath that feeling? And we keep looking and looking and looking and oh, there's a desire. So there's an exercise in my workbook. It's called the something like the desire beneath the desire, something like that. If anybody has the workbook handy, it's in the first step. And it's trying to get at what is the underlying craving that was driving my addiction beyond the substance itself? What was the longing inside me that my addiction was trying to satisfy? And I use this, many of you who've been on retreat with me have done this exercise with me. I don't know how many of you have been on retreat with me. I see a few people, but five or so. Anyway, so this is something different, right? Because it implies something more, I would say, cognitive or reflective than what I had thought of as just being sort of more energetic, just calming energetically. I would say, but obviously both, I don't know, obviously, but I think both strategies are useful. Calming yourself energetically is really valuable, but sometimes it is helpful to see like, oh, what's underneath this? So it's a little bit like what your therapist would ask you, well, what's behind that feeling? But we don't make it so much a psychological inquiry as more of like a felt, what's the, again, I could say energy, what's the energetic, let's say energetic feeling behind this, why this thought is so persistent, because we've gotten to this fourth strategy now and we still haven't been able to calm our minds. So obviously there's something going on, right? And the commentaries are suggesting that there's something underlying this that you might want to look at. An interesting one to inquire about. I hadn't remembered that note, but I'm glad we looked at it. But because again, we're just talking about conditioning. If something arises in the mind, it's because of causes and conditions. Everything has a cause. And when we, part of our meditation practice is trying to kind of discover the subtleties of causality. And as Buddhadasa points out, and as we're talking about, it's all connected, and you're not always certainly going to be able to get to a first cause, but sometimes you can get to the kind of primary cause. Let's say, oh, this is like, oh, this started with that argument I had with my partner last night, and you realize you're off into something completely different this morning when you're meditating, but it's like, well, why am I in that space? And you kind of unravel it right a little bit to that kind of causality. Other times it can be, I didn't get enough sleep and I'm irritable. And now I'm going down that, persistent irritation that I have that comes up when don't get enough sleep. So we just start to, everything's all the interrelationships. All right, let's get to the fifth of these 5 strategies, because here it gets fun. Well, while giving attention to stilling the thought formation of those thoughts, there still arise in them evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hate, with delusion. Then, with teeth clenched and tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, one should beat down, constrain, and crush mind with mind. Woohoo! Now, wait a minute. You're the Buddha. You're supposed to be known for your peacefulness, your calm demeanor. And you're telling me that I should, and listen to this simile. Just as a strong man might seize a weaker man by the head or shoulders and beat him down, constrain him, and crush him, so too one should, with teeth clenched and tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, beat down, constrain, and crush mind with mind. Oh. So there is a note, I think, on this, and this note I'm pretty familiar with, because if I'm not mistaken, this note is saying, I don't want you to think this is like what you should do all the time. No, that doesn't give that note. It just says one should crush the unwholesome state of mind with a wholesome state of mind. Okay. That's one way of avoiding admitting that there's a very violent image. But anyway, what I have heard, I think probably Bhikkhu Bodhi say about this image is, this is like when you have to pull the fire alarm. This is when things are just like you're just losing it. This is not just for ordinary practice, but if you find, it's basically like you're about to pick up a drink kind of thing. It's that kind of state where it's like, this is a really, really bad situation. I'm just about to like scream at my partner, bringing up a lot of relationship issues today. I have to look at the underlying causes of that. But I mean, they are, so that's a place where a lot of emotions come up, can come up, I've heard. So, but you kind of catch yourself. Whoa! No, don't pick up the the object and throw it across the room. Let's calm down. And so. This can be a good, this is a good reminder that it's okay to just say, stop, no. And really, at this point, if we are in this kind of state, it's really time to call your sponsor. It's really time to go to a meeting, because you're not going to be able to constrain your mind with mind for very long if you are really wrapped up. It's really, to me, a signal that I need to stop meditating right now. Meditating is not working right now. I need to take a walk. I need to call somebody. I need to go to the gym. Just take a break from it all. But yeah, this is a classic sutta and set of teachings. So let's review. Because I know it all kind of over the course of a half hour, so it piles up. So you replace it, the unwholesome thought, with something more wholesome. Great, loving kindness. You look into the thought and realize, this is not something I really want to be thinking. This is unhelpful. You just forget, just like, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to this. I'm just going to like put this aside. You look into the causality, the sankhara, the conditioning, and just try to calm it energetically, like, oh yeah, I see, it's like this came out of this. Okay. Or you just no, you just shut the door on it. No, I'm not going to think about this. So my starting point, just to go back to the starting point of this talk, is working with the condition, the breath conditions the body, feelings condition the mind. And so that's what that fourth strategy was about, was seeing into causality. But out in the Anapanasati Sutta, it's giving you a particular strategy for calming the body and calming the mind, using the breath to calm the body, using feelings to calm the mind. In the sutta, it's suggesting that we look more broadly at causality, which is what I was kind of getting at, how those two, breath, body, feelings, mind, are not the whole of the causality that we experience. And so that it's helpful to start to see all these interrelationships. But at a certain point, you realize that just by focusing on my breath, it might not be working. And so now, or just by, breathing with my feelings, it might not be calming my mind, that maybe I should turn to these 5 strategies and see if I take something more of an intervention into this process. Because when we're working with the breath, first of all, we're kind of, it's a practice of patience, right? We sit with it and we allow what's there. We're not trying to control what's happening, but we're trusting that if we work with just mindfulness applied to the breath, that there's a natural unfolding that can happen, and that very often will happen. But these 5 interventions are saying, right now, this just isn't enough. I need to take a more proactive, a word I'm not a huge fan of, but because it's a neologism, and they didn't have it when I was growing up, and I don't like those things that weren't around when I was growing up. Words that they made up, new words. We just like the old words. So just, you could, instead of saying proactive, you could just say active. It's because it's the same thing. Thank you. Okay. Yes. So these 5 strategies are like, okay, just being mindful of breath. I'm kind of too agitated right now for that. I need to bring in some other tools. Oh, I'm gonna bring up some loving kindness, or I'm gonna examine the qualities of thoughts. I'm just gonna turn away from it. I'm gonna see how the conditions behind it. I'm gonna just suppress it. So that's like, I think this, gives us this sutta sort of opens the door on really what could potentially be many other practices if we're sort of using our imagination and the creative strategies. And so we have like the mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the Anapanasati, which is just using the 4 foundations of mindfulness as kind of a standard way to practice. And then we recognize that there are times when this is not enough. And so then as we become more experienced meditators, we start to draw from these and experiment with these different strategies. So this kind of, yeah, this is gives us a lot to work with when we learn, and obviously it takes time to learn first, even to know about all these different approaches to meditation, and then to apply them, which is what, going on retreats is particularly helpful for this because we're forced to sit hour after hour, and all these things show up, all these hindrances show up, and we kind of start to play with these different strategies. But this is a pretty, I'll say that this talk is a pretty good sort of overview of the practice of meditation. So you're welcome. All right, you guys. So, and we've run over, but I will certainly not, I'm not going to run away. I've got some time. So if anybody wanted to chime in or make a comment, I'm happy to ask a question. I'm happy to interact with you. I will say, just, oh, great. So thank you, right, Diane, for putting in the page, the desire beneath the desire, page 75 of my workbook. Yeah. Which is, as I was saying, that's kind of looking at causality and layered causality. Um, yeah. Uh, it's interesting. Many of you know that I went on a long retreat last fall, and oh, good, Monica, thank you for putting the sutta in. If anybody wants to look at the sutta, which I definitely recommend, and the More Than Mindfulness book, definitely want to buy that. You don't have to buy it; it's free, but you can offer a donation. And there's the link to the retreat. That's great. Thanks. I went that 6-week retreat I went on in the fall. It was unusual in the impact it had. I didn't come out of it with the usual like floating on the cloud, the meditative cloud for a period of time that typically after a long retreat one gets, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing. But I am discovering that I learned a lot that I'm mostly discovering as I meditate. I mean, I'm sorry, just misspoke. As I teach, a lot of what I learned on the retreat, and actually, I went on that retreat specifically in mind to work with the Anapanasati Sutta, and I did, and that was successful. I didn't. So it was you guys are benefiting from it more than I am. Yeah, I know that's a ridiculous thing to say, but of course I benefit. It's a great joy. It feels really good. I like a lot of yeah. So that's a silly thing to say because I do feel like I got a lot of insight from that retreat that I didn't realize. And this is very typical for anybody who goes on a long retreat. You'll discover that, like really on any retreat, you discover that like when you're in the retreat, you're in such an altered state that you don't know what you're getting from it. You really don't. And then you get back, and then over the succeeding months and sometimes years, absolutely years, things will come up, and you'll be like, "Oh, wow, yeah, oh yeah, that was from that retreat." So there you go. Anyway, I'm this is I'm meta teaching, META teaching. I'm talking about the experience of teaching. So. I did the meta with 2 T's. Now I'm doing the meta with 1 T, if anyone cares. So I will just want to mention that John Manlove pointed out that he was listening to watching one of my YouTube videos, and an advertisement came on during the guided meditation. And so I am looking into that and researching options for maybe where else to put my videos, or if there's a way that I can ask YouTube, please don't put ads on my videos because you're not paying me for them anyway. So, but we shall see. So I'll keep you updated. So if any of you have encountered that, I mean, I apologize. I didn't realize that would happen. I know there's ads on videos, but I thought that that was for like if you're an affiliate of YouTube or whatever, and then they're like paying you when they run the ads, and be like, yeah, great, but I don't want to do that. So, and Steve, I see you've got your virtual hand up, so go for it.
Yeah, I'm curious, Kevin, the way you were teaching this progression today, it was very detailed and I was just curious, when you were on that long retreat, do you have recall? How many times did you go through that progression to get to that point where you were going to choke the guy by the neck and the hand? Or if you even got that far, in that progression of dealing with the hindrances? I found it very interesting the way you were teaching that today. It
Oh,
was really,
yeah.
I really appreciated that.
That's a good question. I've never, during a meditation period, thought my way through this sutta. I've used all these strategies, sometimes intuitively, sometimes intentionally, but I've never used them actually in the progression that the Buddha is teaching them. So that's
Okay.
full disclosure. Yeah, it's actually a good question. I'm not sure why it hasn't occurred to me to do it more intentionally. I guess because these strategies to me are things that they're like responses to things you're experiencing in real time. And rather than, like, for instance, when I work with the Anapanasati Sutta, I can very intentionally go through the steps of the sutta. But because these strategies are all responses to mind states that are already disrupted, or then I'm not going to like sit down and go, okay, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to start with the replacing, because that's a response to something. So it's much more intuitive, like, oh, wait, what's happening? Oh, man, I need some loving kindness right now. Or, wow, I just need to not think about this. So I haven't done them in order in that way, which, that's how the Buddha taught them. But I think it's going to be fairly unusual when you actually are in a place where you can, I mean, maybe, I don't know that now you've made me curious. I think I might have to go back and, revise my way of meditating.
Well, I don't know. I just found the way you were teaching it, the progressions, it was like, as you taught each progression, I was thinking to myself, I was experiencing each one at different times.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gone into a 1 hour meditation thinking, even if I start off really bad, okay, not that I know all those teachings and all those progressive things that you do, but it just seemed interesting the way it was being taught. It sounded like it was something that maybe you had experienced. I find that very interesting.
Well, I've definitely experienced all those states, and yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, even though the Buddha teaches like that, to teach them as progressive, I don't think that many people use them in that way. I think most of us use them uh, sort of as intuitive responses to particular situations. Uh, so yeah,
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that information. I really appreciate the
it's
teachings.
it's definitely, and I do think that if you've done a lot of meditation, you've probably have intuitively done some of these things or sort of verged on them, and then but it is helpful to like have them like, oh, right, oh, there's a way of doing this, let me actually follow this. Yeah.
Cool. Did you spend time in your new book coming out with some of this information in your new book?
uh you know which book? The Anapanasati book?
The one that's going to be coming out soon.
Well, oh, nothing's coming out soon. Books don't
speed it
come
up.
out fast.
I know.
Yeah, the Anapanasati book, it's still evolving, and you know, I mean, I've written the first draft of it, which is a couple hundred pages, but I'm actually getting more ideas, and yeah, that's this idea, particularly this idea about the interconnection, the causality. That's something that I'm going to develop further, and yeah, so that may lead me into I don't think I've ever formally written about this sutta. I'm sure I've referred to it, parts of it, particularly the replacing. But now, after this talk, I might have to write about it. So we shall
Well,
see.
thanks to everyone for your patience and listening to me. And
Oh, no,
I'm more inspired. So thank you very much.
that was a great question, Steve. I appreciate your participation. Please, no apologies necessary.
Kevin, I appreciate that you dug into this more. It definitely has been, part of my practice, like realizing like I can't settle down or I can't let this go, and it's useful just to have more of the tools. And I appreciated the teachings on Saturday too, and
No,
improving my meta practice, my self-compassion, and and obviously that helps with letting things go if I can see that I'm kind of beating myself up with something. Yeah.
yeah.
So just appreciate your work, and
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, Arlene. Yeah, I mean the you can see how self-compassion fits into this teaching very, very naturally. Yeah, very much.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. I hope everyone has a good day, week. I will see you next Tuesday. And
Thank you, Kevin. Have a beautiful day.
all right, Steve. Thanks, man. All
Enjoy
right,
the
bye.
fog.